Austin Dillon is having a rough time this season. He failed to qualify for the playoffs and is being hated by most NASCAR fans. During the race at Watkins Glen, Dillon was once again not having a good race. But fans were fine as long as he didn't bother any of the other drivers. But then he did exactly that. And now he receives terrible news from the NASCAR fans. During the race at Watkins Glen, Dillon was racing beside Christopher Bell while approaching the final corner of the race. Bell's driving style indicated that he wanted to go into the pits for fresh tires. Dillon was not even able to notice that giant clue and continued to block Bell's entry into the pit. Despite Bell trying to brake to let Dillon through, the number 20 car was spun around by the number 3 car. The spin was not at all necessary as the two drivers were not even battling against each other for position. They were both on different strategies, and Dillon overtaking Bell would not have affected his race at all. Dillon went on to finish the race in 28th, while Bell finished 14th. And we at NASCAR Off Track will always finish first, as we have some of the best NASCAR fans on board. So hit that subscribe button and join a community of die-hard NASCAR fans. As soon as the incident took place, fans took to social media to show their frustrations towards Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon is such a fucking joke. Took out Bell for what reason? Dillon sucks at everything. He's a joke. Without his punk-ass granddaddy, he would be already out of this series, one fan said. Another fan said, unless Christopher Bell didn't give any indication he was pitting, there was no reason for Austin Dillon to dive bomb him in the final corner and turn him. Austin Dillon is literally the dirtiest driver in NASCAR. He needs a lifetime ban from NASCAR. Out of these two drivers, Christopher Bell was the only one competing for the playoffs. Dillon failed to qualify for the playoffs this year. Not for a lack of trying by cheating, so this accident affected Bell's progress in the playoffs as well. But thanks to his 4th place finish last weekend and his regular season performance, Bell is standing first in the playoffs points table for this round. Austin Dillon was already one of the least liked drivers on the grid. After this weekend, he's probably the most hated driver on the grid. Everyone knows that he only has a seat in NASCAR because his grandfather, Richard Childress, owns the RCR team. Otherwise, someone with his talent would not have even made it to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. During the last few races of the regular season, Austin Dillon had an opportunity to win the race and qualify for the playoffs. During the race in Richmond in the regular season, Austin Dillon was running a good race where he was in contention for the race win. During the restart, with 2 laps to go, Dillon was leading with Logano and Hamlin alongside. But Dillon botched the restart and allowed Logano to get ahead. However, in the final lap of the race, knowing that NASCAR can't force another overtime as it's the final lap, Dillon banged into the back of Logano and took him out of the race. He then took out Hamlin, who was looking to get ahead of Dillon after he had wrecked Logano. While all this was happening, Dillon's spotter was even heard yelling, "Wreck him," on the radio to Dillon. The number 3 went on to win the race after this. NASCAR then investigated the incident and determined that the number 3 crew had definitely crossed a line here, and all the fans agreed. There was no doubt that Austin had intended to wreck both Logano and Hamlin to secure the race win for himself. Although NASCAR allowed him to retain the race win, they stripped his playoff spot for the season. RCR tried to protest the decision made by NASCAR but was denied. While Austin Dillon and RCR continue to defend their actions in Richmond, the fans are not standing for it at all. As long as this incident continues to make headlines, there will be hate going towards RCR and Dillon. Here are some of the comments from the fans after Austin Dillon's statement. "Yeah, that's bullshit. Austin is 100% in the wrong, no matter how it gets sliced. I don't know why the whole team has to continue to lie. We have access to the data. We absolutely know everything he's saying is not true. The lying, justifying, and victim blaming is just making Austin and RC look so much worse. Taking the punishment as is and accepting it would have been the move. But instead, they look like entitled children, maneuvering around the fact what Austin did was so obviously intentional. What makes fans even madder is the fact that Dillon is driving with the number that legendary driver Dale Earnhardt Sr. drove with. Dillon's horrible performances under the number 3 is ruining the legacy of that number." After he received his penalties for the Richmond race, he said, "For Joey, I'm sorry for the situation that he was in. It didn't matter if it was Joey or anybody. I was going to do my best to get my team to victory lane. The situation on pit road after the race, a lot of things were said in the heat of the moment from him about my family. I believe in Christ even, but for me, I forgive him for getting frustrated." He added, "I've learned a lot from Denny and Joey over the years. They don't have any regrets over what they do on the racetrack, and I can't either. I don't feel that way. I'm not going to say I regret anything because I didn't. I went to sleep and felt really good about everything I had to do for me and my team. His apology created little to no impact on the fans or the drivers. In fact, none of the drivers even care about Dillon. Just over a week ago, during Playoff Media Day, a survey orchestrated by Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports during the NASCAR Cup Series Playoff Media Day sought to uncover which drivers were least favored by their peers during late race restarts, a critical moment that often defines race outcomes. The results were telling, with Dillon emerging as a focal point of criticism. Among the 16 drivers surveyed, 2 explicitly mentioned Dillon as their least preferred competitor to have alongside them during these high-stakes situations. One driver directly referenced recent events, implying a connection between past incidents and their current sentiment, while another driver remarked, "Austin Dillon, I can answer that one pretty easy," highlighting the consensus against Dillon. This feedback is not merely a reflection of personal rivalries. It also sheds light on Dillon's recent performance and decision-making on the track. In an environment where trust and predictability are paramount, the negative perceptions surrounding Dillon suggest that his actions may have raised concerns among fellow competitors. The implications of such opinions can be far-reaching, affecting race strategies and alliances. As the playoffs progress, Dillon's standing among his peers could greatly impact his competitive edge, necessitating a critical reassessment of his approach as he navigates the challenging dynamics of the NASCAR landscape. It's quite clear that everyone on the grid hates Austin Dillon, so why is he still in NASCAR? Well, as mentioned before, he is the grandson of Richard Childress, the owner of RCR. But the problem is that having Dillon in the team is tarnishing the team's legacy in the sport. There used to be a time when RCR was the best team in NASCAR, but now it's hardly a midfield team. If they continue to support Austin Dillon, they could be pushing Kyle Busch, a 2-time Cup Series champion, away from the team. With the negative media RCR has been receiving because of the number 3 crew, Busch will not want to be associated with the team for long. At the moment, Busch's contract with the team is set to expire after the 2025 season. Dillon's contract will continue on until the end of the 2026 season. It's clear that Richard Childress is prioritizing his limited talent grandson over Kyle Busch, a 2-time Cup Series champion. So why would Busch want to stay in such a team? Heading into next year, Busch's main objective would be to find a better team as RCR's work culture is starting to become toxic. He will not want to be a part of a team where they encourage their drivers to wreck others just to secure a race win. This is not what NASCAR racing is. There are a few teams Busch could join, but Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports remain at the top of the list for Kyle. If he gets the chance to drive for either of these teams, he'll jump at the opportunity. So what are your thoughts on Austin Dillon as a NASCAR driver? Do you think RCR should get rid of him and find someone who's actually good? Also, do you think Kyle Busch should go to another team? If so, which team? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.